So then that brings us to our latest installment for Scientific Sunday, Genetic 101 from our Director of Genetic Education, Ryan Rodimer. So hopefully there's not a lot of big words in this, but I'm not reading the entire thing on here. We're just going to read a little bit of this, but over the weeks, Ryan is basically discussing a variety of topics that are related to genetics. Very, very important stuff. And you should use this information as a tool to have discussions with your own physicians to determine if this is something that's important to you. It's not a requirement. It's not a requirement. And there's a lot of factors that go into having genetic testing, especially if you're going to have your children genetically tested, because depending on how you go about having those genetic tests done, clinically, those results are fair game for any business to be made aware of. And I'm specifically referring to insurance, long-term disability, stuff of that nature. Research, it's anonymous, and so they don't show and share those results. Clinical, you'll get the results back regardless of what the results are, and you get them in a fairly quick turnaround. Research, not necessarily true. You might not get a result if it shows negative, and it could take a long time. Usually they bundle them in 100 samples, so that's 100 people, and then they go to the lab. So if they're sitting at 80, you're going to be waiting a while until they get to 100 and then process it. So it's a little bit more time consuming, but it's definitely more anonymous. So leading up to this, over the last couple of weeks, Ryan has discussed and written articles about how aortic disease can actually be inherited from multifactorial disease. So think multiple genes and environmental factors, lower risks, later age, often abdominal aorta involvement, to single gene causes that is a part of a larger syndrome like Marfan, Loewe Dietz, vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndromes, and those that are confined to the thoracic aorta, which are non-syndromic hereditary thoracic aortic disease. So that's its own disease in itself. But let's chat about an important topic that kind of ties all of that was mentioned together, and that's genetic testing, because that's how you figure out what you have, right? And Ryan wants to mention you can always email him directly at ryan@myaorticjourney.com. You can also request to speak with him through info@aortichope.org. The benefits of genetic testing, let's at least get into that, and then you can have a chance to read this blog. So why would somebody want to have genetic testing for aortic disease? He wants to let you know what survivors, families, and caregivers need to know. So if you or your loved one has survived aortic dissection, you'll likely understand the importance of early detection. That's really, really key. And treatment for aortic disease. However, did you know that genetic testing can offer significant benefits for the management of aortic disease as well, and prevention of the condition? So having that genetic testing could help in those areas as well. So in this post, he's actually going to discuss the benefits of genetic testing for aortic disease and what survivors, families, and caregivers really need to know. And that's by going through what actually aortic disease is, and then talking about the benefits of testing, identifying any underlying genetic mutations, surveillance for multi-system complications, guiding clinical management, screening your family members, who, what age, when, how, where, all of that's going to be discussed. And then also relief from uncertainty. So basically, in conclusion, genetic testing can actually offer some significant benefits for the management and prevention of aortic disease. And if you have an opportunity to identify the underlying genetic cause of a condition, facilitating multi-system monitoring, guiding clinical management, and screening family members actually will save lives. Additionally, genetic testing can actually offer some relief from the uncertainty and the fear that accompanies aortic disease. It's that whole unknown. So if you or your loved one has a history in your family of aortic disease, or someone passed suddenly and you're not sure because there wasn't an autopsy and people just chalked it up to a heart attack, then you really do want to talk to your healthcare provider. This is the whole think aorta, think family mantra. And you want to find out if genetic testing is right for you and your immediate family members. And together, you and your physicians can actually make informed decisions about managing your health and reducing your risk for complications. It's not the cure, but the key in thinking about your aorta and thinking about your family is to kind of figure out who might be at potential risk as soon as you can. Determine what type of diagnostic or genetic testing you want to do, and then you can figure out how best to monitor your family members if necessary. This way, if there's going to be a potential issue with the aorta, maybe they can uh, figure that out and diagnose that before the elusive aortic dissection happens. That's what you want to really try to avoid because that's the most potentially fatal, and that's the rarest. The rest of it all is much more common than you think. So give this a check. Me personally, I have been genetically tested. There is a gene of a variant of unknown significance. A VUS is what it's called, VUS, variant of unknown significance. It's just something that they follow. I think there may be somebody else in the world who has this same variant. Does that mean I'm related to them? I don't know. But it's not of anything that's that grandiose yet. They didn't even have a name for it 8 years ago, but now all of a sudden there's a bunch of letters and numbers next to it. So it may become something for myself. Otherwise, I tested negative, hard negative for all of the well-known syndromes and conditions. And my parents were tested as well. We never heard back anything. This was through research, so we have only to assume there was nothing there. I know that there couldn't have been because there's nothing on me. So I am not going to move forward with genetically testing my child. That is something I will leave up to him to make that decision. But what I will say to that is treat him as though there is that great possibility there could be a problem in the future. So he has already had an echo. He will be having a CAT scan, and he is monitored 3 to 5 years. They take a look at him. They make sure he's doing fine because the sooner, if we need to find something, if something's going to be found, the sooner we can diagnose that, the sooner maybe there's intervention to keep anything really potentially fatal from happening. So right now we're at the monitoring phase, and I'm good with that. I don't need to, there's nothing to really test if there's nothing that's been identified in me. So even if there were, with a 50-50 chance that it could happen to him, you just assume it's there. You just assume. That's my feeling. You may feel that if there's something within you, you definitely want to know for sure if it's in your own child or your sibling. It's a very personal choice. Again, this article goes into a lot of reasons, benefits, negatives, whatever the case may be. And this is where talking to your physicians and deciding what the best plan for your current situation is. But this is really good stuff, and we really appreciate Ryan contributing to this genetics series for us.